We invite you to stay tuned for the live broadcast of the Wednesday evening Bible study of the Mayfield Drive Baptist Church, located at 271 Mayfield Drive, Smyrna, Tennessee. We will now join the service.
All right. Well, we welcome you back to our Wednesday evening Bible study. We are continuing what we believe as Missionary Baptist Declaration number 16. Declaration number 16. So we have 10 or 11 more to go. No, not that many.
21?
I think it's 21 or 22. 22. So, we've only got about 6 left, yeah. Provided that all of them can be in one lesson. And that may not happen. All right. Number 16, declaration number 16 is we believe that God deals with believers as his children, that he chastens the disobedient, and that he rewards the obedient. So once again, this declaration has several proof texts for us to consider. The first is in Matthew chapter 16, verse 37. 16:27. What did I say, 37? 47. Okay. Yeah, there's no telling what I want to say tonight. So it's a good thing that everything is printed out in front of you. So, all right. Matthew chapter 16, verse 27. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and he shall reward every man according to his works. Now, this is a simple passage, and it leaves nothing hard to understand. In quite simple language, Matthew states that Jesus will come in the glory of the Father along with his angels. He shall reward or recompense, that's the meaning of reward, all men according to their works. Now, in this verse, there is not a distinction whether the individual is saved or lost. Okay, follow me? From other passages, we know that both the saved and the lost will receive according to what they have done on the earth. The time element in this passage is not considered. We know that there is much time space between the two events of the saved and the lost, namely 1,000 years. We should not read more into this verse than there is in it. It's a simple statement that Jesus will come with his angels, and when he comes, he will reward all men. Now, if you just take this passage, Matthew 16:27, if you just take it on the surface and you do not look at anything else, you would come to the conclusion that there is a general resurrection. You follow me? You see that? A general resurrection. There are some who believe that everyone is going to be resurrected at the same time. And then God is going to separate the right from the left. Saints and the sinners shall be divided right up. There's a song that goes like that. The saints and the sinners shall be divided, something along that line, right and left. Nah, that's not scriptural. Not scriptural whatsoever. So this just states that Jesus will come, and we know that he's coming in the glory of his Father. That's understandable, with his angels, and that's true too. And that he shall reward every man according to his works, or their works. So, We know that the saints are going to be rewarded. Okay? But we also, from studying the book of Revelation, that the lost are going to be judged according to their works as well. Now, all sin is sin. But there are different degrees of consequences, if you will, for sins. Such as murder would carry a greater degree of consequence than, say, stealing a piece of candy.
Or even the area where Christ said, if you hate your brother, it's the same thing as committing murder. So,
That is correct. That is correct. So, sin is sin, has to be answered for or paid for. But the degrees of consequences can be vastly different. So the lost are going to receive the reward. Again, put that word recompense. Okay? You put that word recompense, the lost are going to be recompensed for what they have done on this earth. Okay? So that's what this passage is telling us. So you don't, like I said, you don't want to read more into it than what is there. This is a simple statement. Then, in order to understand it, you go to other passages of Scripture. Okay? You don't just stay with that one. All right, so the next passage is Matthew 25, verses 14 through 23. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability. Take note of that. Straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoned with them. So he that had received 5 talents came, brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Now, I should have put the rest of this parable in there, but I am going to refer to it. So if you want to look at it later, please do. Jesus is using a parable in these passages to explain some of the details of how he will reward the saints when he returns. Now, I personally believe that he is explaining part of the details concerning the millennium, his 1,000-year reign on this earth. Now, here again, you go to other scriptures to get the background. Other passages tell us that when Jesus rules and reigns for 1,000 years on this earth, then the saints are going to rule and reign with him. Now, that's a flat statement. He is the one who will decide what we're going to be doing or not be doing. Okay? That's the background of this parable. Now, there are 3 servants that are called before the Lord. The first is given 5 talents. The second is given 2 talents. And then the third, 1 talent. There is an indication that this talent was a unit of money. The first took the 5 talents and invested it somehow. We're not told how. We're just told that he and the second servant traded. However the trading was, they each doubled the talents that they had been given. You will note that they had been issued what they were capable of handling. Okay, the third servant, and we didn't get into those scriptures, but the third servant was afraid of losing the 1 talent that had been entrusted to him, so he stowed it away in a safe place. So after a long period of time, the Lord returned and called for an accounting of the 3 servants. The first was called, and his report was that he had gained another 5 talents to go with the original 5. He was commended and rewarded by giving rule over many things. The same was with the second servant. He had doubled the 2 talents that had been entrusted to him, and he had increased it to 4 talents. So he was also rewarded in the same manner as the first. Now, I want to pause here for a minute. I may make a statement down in this a little later, but you notice that the Lord knew each one of these servants. He knew their capabilities. He knew what they could do. Not necessarily what they would do, but what they were capable of doing. So the first one, he used the ability that he had, and so he doubled the 5 talents to 10. Now, a little tidbit I didn't put in your notes, but apparently when you read the scriptures, if you on down farther, part of what we didn't read, he takes away the 1 talent from the one, I'm jumping ahead of myself, and he gives it to the one that has 10. There is nowhere in these passages of Scripture that say that they had to give all 10 back. Instead, down here, the Lord said, take it away from this one who's been unfaithful and give it to the one that has 10. 10. Okay. He still had them. They had to account for it, but they still had them. Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
Don't you suppose there's something also in there that we say this, that small churches also need pastors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something in that also that God puts the pastors in where they're capable of doing that particular work.
Yes, sir.
That doesn't mean they're small, but that means that God puts them where He wants them, and they're capable of doing it.
Right. Yes. I personally have never had a desire to pastor a big church.
The older I get.
I just never did. And another thing that I always wanted is to know what the people had been taught. If I started to work and I was the primary one doing the teaching, I know what they've been taught.
Yes.
Okay? The churches, organized churches that I pastored, the established churches, the 2 established churches that I pastored, there was only 2 of them. I didn't like the problems that I had just being a pastor. It was so different than mission work, where you not only were the pastor, you were the chief cook and bottle washer, so to speak. You sometimes you had to do everything. And the teaching was part of it. You had to teach them. And then if you had teachers trained, then they could carry on in teaching. You were going to.
I was thinking about this, and Katie could probably tell you, can probably confer this, but within this church, how many churches have I pastored?
Within this, oh,
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
because like when I first came, there was this group, and slowly some of them left.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's some that stayed the whole time, and then there was another group,
Yeah.
and then some of them left, and it's always several that stay, but then there's more added, like the Roberts
Yeah.
and everything, you know.
And I never thought about that, but I
Yeah.
probably pastored as many churches
At least,
just here.
Just staying right here, yeah.
at least 3 since I've been here, possibly 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unique because I pastored one in Belgrade and one in Oxford and one in Alabama and probably 4 here. So,
In one building.
In what? Yeah.
One building.
4 in one building. Right.
we've never gone to the mission status.
Yeah. We know what our feelings are on that. Okay, so let's continue. I want to put that tidbit in there so when we cover it, then you know what we're talking about. When the third servant was called to give an account of what he had done with the one talent that had been given into his keeping, he had to confess to his Lord that he was afraid of the Lord and the way that he took gain. So instead of putting the talent to trade, he stored it away for safekeeping. Grant, I challenge you to diagram that sentence.
It's only 4 lines long.
That's Apostle Paul's sentence. He probably thought that he had done a good thing because the talent was safe and had not been lost, but could be safely returned to its rightful owner. No doubt he was not expecting the reaction that he received from his Lord. He was scolded and rebuked for not putting the talent out to trade so that there would be 2 when he was called into account for it. In fact, the one talent that was given to him was taken away and given to the one servant that held the 10 talents. Now, some might say, what's the moral of this story? Very simply. And remember, pause here. Remember, a parable has a central theme. You can get so bogged down into every little bitty detail and lose what the basic meaning is completely. The basic meaning, the basic concept that Jesus was trying to get across with this parable is that we are to be busy. Okay? These other little details just flesh it out. We are to be busy for the Lord until He returns. We each have certain talents, not money, and abilities that we are to use for the glory and the honor of the Lord. Each has what the Lord has provided them to use. You note in the parable that the Lord provided the materials for them to trade and to be able to get more. They didn't do it on their own. But they took, at least the 2 of them, took what God had given to them, or the Lord had given to them, and then made it work. They didn't just let it sit. All right? Some people are exceptionally talented and have great abilities, while others do not have as much. Whatever we have, what the Lord has given to us, be it great or small, we are to use to the best of our ability as we work for Him. The third servant did not do anything. He represents those of God's children that even though they're saved, they do not make any attempt to serve Him. Unfortunately, this is probably the biggest part of the saved. Now, the point here is we are rewarded as to how we have served the Lord here on this earth. So the next passage to consider is found in John 1, verse 12. But as many as received Him, to them gave He power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on His name. This passage is also quite simple to understand. It literally states that as many people that have believed on Jesus to save them, to them was given the ability to become the children of God. The last phrase clarifies to whom this ability was given: to those that believed on Jesus. Now, the word power in this case, if you didn't pick up on it, means ability. So the next passage for consideration is found in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of Him. For whom the Lord loveth, He chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom He receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then ye are bastards, and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but He for our profit, that we might be partakers of His holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Now, this passage addresses a subject that none of us like, that of discipline. There are some words that I want to do a word study on quickly, and that first word is chastening. You might get a little surprised when we get into the meaning of this one. The Greek word is pahidaa. I can always depend on Jeremy getting the pronunciation. The meaning is this: the whole training and education of children which relates to the cultivation of mind and morals, and employs for this purpose now commands and admonitions, now reproof and punishment. It also includes the training and care of the body. Whatever in adults also cultivates the soul, especially by correcting mistakes and curbing passions. Instruction which aims at increasing virtue, chastisement, chastening of the evils with which God visits men for their amendment. Now, this takes in the whole scope of training and teaching. It's not We think of chastisement, we think of discipline or punishment. But it's much more than that. It's not just correction. Okay? It is basic training and then advanced training.
Yes.
Okay?
Brother Joe, and it's interesting, the word Mary and the child in the house, that word is padia. Not briefos, but padia.
Mm-hmm.
A child under training.
Mm-hmm.
That's that root word we get there. So.
That's the root. Yeah.
Exactly.
Next word is scourgeth. My spell check had a fit with this word. The Greek word is mastigoo. Did you catch that? Mastigoo. O. Accent is on the first O. It's simple. It simply means to flog, literally or figuratively, scourge. This means that God has to give us a whipping sometimes. My pastor is fond of saying that when he was growing up, many times he did not get a spanking, he got a whipping. Meaning, it was hard and not to be forgotten.
And it hasn't.
Sometimes that's what God has to do with us when we've been stubborn and rebellious. He has to give us a whipping that's hard and not to be forgotten. Now the Hebrews writer reminds us that we all have had earthly fathers or parents. Sometimes it was the mothers that carried out the whipping that disciplined us accordingly. Now when I was growing up, it was not my daddy that did the spanking. It was mother. And believe you me, you never wanted to get one from daddy anyway. Mother would, some mothers would say, wait till your daddy gets home.
Not mine either. Get out there and get a switch off.
Right.
And you know what's interesting?
Not the dreaded switch.
What's interesting is my mom and my daddy must never learn how to count.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they didn't go 1, 2, 3. And if my mama had to get on to me,
It was immediate.
it's going to be worse when my daddy got home. And if my daddy didn't say anything in the car, then I could just get ready when I got to the house. Son, wait for me in your room. And I would get a whipping with that little bell. And I never forgot it.
I don't know about belts or switches. I hated switches, but the worst was the wiffle ball bat.
You would never want to tell them if they said, go get me a switch, you didn't want to bring something back that they, no way,
There's a
really
joke.
skinny.
There's
You
a
better
joke.
not.
A comedian talked about. He told a joke about the switch, and he said you'd go out and this one's too thin. It'll break. They'll laugh. This one will break my back. This one.
Yeah.
Trying to find the right one. I'm telling you, the worst is a wiffle ball bat. The yellow wiffle ball bat. That was the worst I ever got.
Or our principal had a board paddle, and she called it the Board of Education.
Leads the seed of learning.
I had one, and Michael will tell you, I called it the Big Mac. Because it was about this big. It was the Big Mac. So, and it disappeared. I don't know what happened.
He used to
Probably
make
buried
them.
in the creek
He used to
somewhere.
make them. He worked for a place, and they tore up pallets.
Yeah.
He used to make them out of a piece of wood, out of a pallet,
My goodness.
and they would disappear. I would use them as swords.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
She just took the rubber band and the ball off and put that into her pocketbook. She didn't carry guns, she carried a, and then if you slept in church, you could whip that out and pow! And I would say, I'm sleeping. Yeah, I'm praying. Wait. No, you're not. No, you're not.
I heard you snore.
Well, they disciplined us accordingly. It was for our benefit, not for theirs. It was to teach us, to help us to learn right from wrong.
Yes.
They did not have to teach us wrong.
That's something that parents, we don't have to teach our kids. They got that down.
They've got that down. We did enough of that on our own. But sometimes it was difficult to learn the right. He goes on to say that if we do not, boy, I got that tense wrong, didn't I? Yeah, leave off the D. If we do not receive discipline from the Lord, then we do not belong to Him. In other words, we have not been saved. These verses do not leave any doubts. God disciplines us when He feels we need it. He does it for our benefit, not His. Our parents did not discipline us for their benefit. It was strictly for ours. The writer concludes in verse 11 that it may not feel so good when the discipline is being extended on us. In fact, it may seem like we're not going to survive this, but take heart. The peace that comes when it's all over is worth it. It's called the peaceable fruit of righteousness. So 2 John verse 8 is the next passage. Look to yourselves that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. Now it's because of this verse that I've had to change some of my thinking concerning losing rewards. I'm not going to tell you what I thought before, but my thinking now is that we need to be careful concerning the works that we have done for the Lord, because if we're not careful, we might lose some or all of them because of unconfessed sin in our lives. John says, be careful so that we might receive a complete reward. And the last passage to consider is found in Revelation 22 and verse 12. Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his works shall be. Now this ties in with a verse we had a while ago. This verse is a good closing for this declaration. Jesus said He would come, and His reward for each of us is with Him according to our work. I will not receive any reward for anything that you may have done. And you will not receive any reward for anything that I may have done. To each our own. The encouragement is that we do all that we are able to do for the glory and honor of the Lord. So in conclusion, it's still difficult to reduce this down to just a few words and retain the meaning. So we believe that God deals with believers as His children, and He chastens the disobedient and He rewards the obedient. Any questions, comments? All right. Well, we will be dismissed, and trust that you hadn't been tuning in on Friday night, we have a good time. Invite you to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Last week you taught on security of the believer. Was it last week? The week before?
Yeah.
I think it was, yes.
Last week.
Well, the one thing, the years that I've had problems with security of the believer, well, the one thing my teacher, Brother Alexander, taught me was this. He said, if God hasn't disciplined you, you're not one of his own. That is one secure thing that you can
Right.
you can take to the bank and get money from it because it is yours. But if he leaves you alone and doesn't ever correct you for anything, you're not one of his own.
Right.
And that is it's security.
Yes.
A lot of people
It
look
is.
for something to hold on to when they're doubting their salvation. And you can go back and say, well, have you ever been disciplined? Have you ever felt that? And then they start thinking about it. Yes, with this, and they can give you specific instances. If they can do that, then they've got security as a believer.
Yes.
And they're one of his own.
Yes.
So that's something to let them be very encouraged about.
Sometimes people get the idea, and this was covered, I think, in the series that I did, why bad things happen to good people. Even in Job's day, people, and Brother Bernie touched on this in one of his messages recently, many times, even today, people have the idea that if something bad happens to someone, well, they must have done something awful bad. Well, that's not necessarily the case. When God gives you a whipping, you know it. You know it's because that you have not done right. All right? Don't ask me how to explain it. You know. A child of God knows when God is disciplining them. And like has been said, if you've never been disciplined by God, then you might better check your salvation because you might not be saved.
Exactly. Brother Joe, and Sister Angela, one passage of scripture that I was getting things ready. If anything else, said if we believe not, that's an area, if we have a hard time believing about our security, yet he abideth faithful, he cannot deny himself. There it is right there. Has nothing to do with
Has nothing to do with what we think or we feel. That doesn't alter the facts. All right, well, let's be dismissed. Jeremy, would you dismiss us, please?
Of the Mayfield Drive. You've been listening to the live broadcast of the Wednesday evening Bible study of the Mayfield Drive Baptist Church in Smyrna, Tennessee. We invite you to tune in at the same time next Wednesday evening for another live broadcast of the Wednesday evening Bible study. We would love to see your comments regarding this broadcast. You may email us at imbr@imbmpodcast.com. That's imbr@imbmpodcasts.com. Or you may write to us at International Missionary Baptist Radio, P.O. Box 1676, Smyrna, Tennessee 37167. That's International Missionary Baptist Radio, P.O. Box 1676, Smyrna, Tennessee 37167. Thank you for listening. and may you have a blessed day.